Mr. R. Ramaraj, founder Sifi Technologies Private Limited. R. Ramaraj holds a B.Tech in Chemical Engineering from the University of Madras and an MBA from the Indian Institute of Management, Kolkata. His last venture was Sifi, where he was the co-founder and chief executive officer. Sifi was the first Indian internet company to list on Nasdaq National Market in the US, Nasdaq Sifi. Ramaraj is on the board of Olympic Gold Quest, OGQ, a not-for-profit organization. OGQ is committed to bridging the gap between the best athletes in India and the best athletes in the world, thus helping Indian athletes to win Olympic gold medals. He was a member of the Global Board of Trustees of TIE, the Indus Entrepreneurs. In 2010, the Confederation of Indian Industry, CII, recognized him with a Lifetime Achievement Award. Ramaraj has been a senior advisor to Elivar since 2014. Prior to Elivar, he was the senior advisor at Sequoia Capital. He is a member of the Board of Governors of the Indian Institute of Management, Kolkata. Mr. Vishwanathan Anand, Indian Chess Grandmaster and former World Chess Champion. Vishwanathan Vishy Anand is an Indian Chess Grandmaster and former World Chess Champion. He became the first Grandmaster from India in 1988 and is one of the few players to have surpassed an ELO rating of 2,800, a feat he first achieved in 2006. Anand is a 5-time World Chess Champion. In April 2006, Anand became the fourth player in history to pass the 2,800 ELO mark on the FIDE rating list after Garry Kasparov, Vladimir Kramnik and Veselin Topalov. He occupied the number 1 position for 21 months, the 6th longest on record. Known for his rapid playing speed as a child, Anand earned the sobriquet of Lightning Kid during his early career in the 1980s. He has since developed into a universal player and is considered by many to be the greatest rapid chess player of his generation. He won the FIDE World Rapid Chess Championship in 2003 and 2017, the World Blitz Cup in 2000, and numerous other top-level rapid and blitz events. Anand was the first recipient of the Rajiv Gandhi Khel Ratna Award in 1991-92, India's highest sporting honour. In 2007, he was awarded India's second highest civilian award, the Padma Vibhushan, making him the first sportsperson to receive the award. Viren Wilfred Raskina is a former captain of the Indian national men's hockey team and the youngest player to have ever played in India's international league. He joined the Olympic Gold Quest in 2009 and is the CEO at present. Bagged a silver medal along with the team at the 2002 Asian Games held in Busan. Played a vital role in the team in securing gold medal for India at the 2003 Asia Cup held in Kuala Lumpur. Received the Shiv Chhatrapati Award by the Government of India in 2004. Bestowed with the Arjuna Award by the Government of India in 2005. Won the Best Sportsman of the Year award in 2005. Completed MBA from Indian School of Business ISB Hyderabad in 2009.
This is a session on appreciation of life. To do this session, we have two wonderful individuals, outstanding sportsmen, and more importantly, from this audience point of view, incredible role models. So why do I call them role models? Because not just because they've been successful sportsmen and in other aspects of life, but I think as role models, what comes to us is how did they become successful in the first place? How did they handle that success? For sports people, failures can be huge. So how did they handle failure? How did they come back out of it and continue to become and stay successful? And in all this, these two gentlemen seem to have enjoyed their lives and have had fun. So how do you have fun and still go through all these success, have your goals and meet it? So that is why I think they are great role models for all of you young leaders who are about to step out of your universities and come back into the business world. So Anand and Viren, we are talking to students of management who are about to step out into the business world or entrepreneurial world. For most business students, they have one objective only. And when they join the institute, till they are out, they have just one objective, and that is placement. Nothing else. They are far more focused than even Geet Sethi or you, Vishy, when you're at the chessboard, when they are looking at placement. So, in a way, the pandemic has got everyone to, there's a pause in our lives. There is a stock taking and introspection about what are we doing. While I don't think the business students have lost that focus, but I think they've had that window to introspect and think about what else they may be. So, Vishy, you were the first grandmaster for India. You went on to become the world champion in chess, when in India, there was really nobody you could emulate to that extent, no great role model. And you, through all this, I saw in your book, you have quoted Paul Anka and Frank Sinatra in that song of My Way, and how you did it your way, which is what I'm understanding. So, where have you been able to appreciate life through all this? And what pointers, based on your extraordinary successful background, can you share with these young leaders who are going to step out into the business world? So start with you, Vishy.
I was fortunate that I was sort of the first person to do many things. The first Indian grandmaster, the first Indian to qualify for the candidates, then the first Asian to go for. As a result, I had the luxury of not having to match up to someone else's expectations. Literally, I could set my expectations. It was challenging as well because there was a reason for this. We were doing this for the first time. I had to learn many things on my own. I would say at the beginning of my career, my three goals were ranking, just like placement, which is a kind of placement. So in a way, it's like they tell you at university, you must do certain things because that's how it is done there. I think very early in your career, you will not have anything called work-life balance. You have to go 100%. It's part of the learning process because you understand what happens when you push, when you press the accelerator all the way, what happens when you push yourself that much. But very soon, so I had a big breakthrough at the world level when I became a world junior champion and a grandmaster in the same year. Then took me a while to get used to my new situation. Then I broke through to the next level when I got into became a candidate for the world cycle. That opened new doors, new prestigious tournaments, most important ones, playing the top players. Then I got used to that. And I tried to become a world champion, which means then fighting at the highest level. And somewhere in the middle of that second thing is when the first unexpected slump came along. Things seem to be going smoothly, and then suddenly you feel like you've hit a wall, performance wall. You can't get forward. And you realize that pushing yourself 100% is, while it's good to test your limits, it's not a long-term strategy. You really be one-dimensional. You have to keep time for yourself, even if you're fairly independent. You might, let's say you don't have family commitments, but you're fairly independent. You still need to set time aside for other things to recover and so on. So roundabout then, I remember 93, 94. I started paying attention to this, which I had neglected for a while. I started paying attention to getting some time off, to learning to think about things. Spend a few moments in the day to enjoy. I mean, I was going to lovely places, but never taking the time to go out, look at anything. Just very, very focused on my chess and expand my horizons a bit. And the beautiful thing is, very soon you make the connection. Hey, this doesn't affect my performance at all. So, as a learning experience, that's when I first hit upon it. There were signs earlier, but I remember this feeling strongly. Know that sometimes to play well, you have to just stop, take time off from playing even.
So, what you're saying is that there is a lot of hard work if you want to be successful, if you want to be noticed, if you want to leave a footprint behind, a legacy behind, but balance it at some stage by looking around you, what people say mindfulness of an awareness of things around you, like just take stock, enjoy small things, a cup of tea, just know what it is that you are having. Even that, sometimes we don't know, we just gulp it down. So take time to appreciate the little things as much as the big things, is what I think I heard you say as a message to people here, the youngsters. I'll come back, Vishy. I just want to talk to Viren for a moment, and then I'll come back to you. There's lots, I think, there is to talk with you. But I just want to go off to Viren and talk for a minute. So Viren, you don't come from a sporting family. Neither do you, Vishy, I think. So yet you took up hockey. Most youngsters take up cricket. And the reason they take up cricket is because there is fame and money. And that fame and money is one of the driving motivations why we have all this. I don't think those days when you took up, there was that fame and money. So what was the motivation that got you to do something? It's not from family, because there isn't a father or a brother who was a hockey player. So where did that motivation come from? You became India's hockey captain. You played in the Olympics, and you've done extremely well in a tough sport, physically tough sport. So it's not easy. So where did that motivation come from to see something through? And where did you get your inspiration?
I actually, you're right. I came from a very normal, conservative, middle-class background. I grew up in the suburb of Bandra in Mumbai. And, growing up in the late 80s, early 90s, at that time, you had to become either a doctor or an engineer. And, mom was a doctor, dad was an engineer. My parents were super strict with my eldest brother. And he loved sport, and he eventually became an engineer. They were sort of medium strict with the second brother. He loved football. He was really good at football, and he eventually became an engineer as well. And for me, actually, I was the third and last and the luckiest one, because by the time I came along, my parents were not bothered at all. So and that's how I could actually start playing hockey.
So you went below the radar.
you can say that, but I just found myself as a bit lucky. In the funny part was that in 10th standard, which was the SSC board exams, I was a fairly good student. I came 13th on the Mumbai SSC merit. And again, back in the day, everyone and their uncle told my parents he should take up medicine or engineering. And I used to see my mom's big medical journals at home. And I used to see my brother's even bigger engineering books at home. And anyway, I couldn't understand a single equation in school. So I said both medicine and engineering. I would save more lives if I did not become a doctor. So I thought hockey was a little bit simpler for me, and that's how I took to hockey. And at that point of time, I love hockey. I was very lucky again in school because my school, St. Stanislaus High School, is famous for producing hockey players. We have produced around 6 or 7 players who have played for India, including a few Olympians. And my coach in school was an Olympian. His name was Marcellus Gomes. He played at the 1984 Los Angeles Olympics. And when I was 11, 12, 13 years old, he taught me everything I knew. And not just technical hockey skills, but I think more importantly, he taught me the importance of teamwork and discipline and commitment. And I think most importantly, taught me to believe in myself and to believe that I had the talent to, if I worked hard, that maybe I could achieve something in hockey. And honestly, we all need mentors and good teachers and coaches in life. And for me, Marcellus Gomes was that coach who changed my life when I was 11, 12 years old. So, I took it one step at a time. And, in your introduction, you rightly said about doing all these things, but also enjoying yourself along the way. And actually, I never looked upon it as a sacrifice. As an athlete, you go to sleep. I would be sleeping 9:30, 10 every night because training would start at 5:36 in the morning, and I'm just too exhausted to last beyond 9:30 night. Again, it also helped that in those days there was hardly any internet, no Wi-Fi, no mobile phones. You had to go to, if you remember, the cyber cafes if you wanted to send an email. And so, but I never looked upon all that as a sacrifice because I was just doing what I love doing. And for me, playing hockey was there, and one thing led to another, and I went on to play for India and captain the Indian hockey team and play at the Olympics. I think it was just a tremendous journey, and I relate so much to what Anand said when he says when you go to play tournaments, you're just so focused at that point of time. All I would see was airport, hotel, and hockey stadium. You go to next city, airport, hotel, hockey stadium. And I was in the Indian team by 18, 19 years old, and all my friends thought I was leading a very glamorous life. Because one week we were playing in Amsterdam, the next week in Munich, the next week we were flying across and playing in Sydney. And but it was hard to tell them that actually I didn't see anything. All I saw was the hotel and the airport and the hockey stadium. So, but at that point of time, sometimes it's hard to enjoy and remove the blinders. But I guess sometimes in hindsight, when you look back, you realize that actually it doesn't affect your game if you maybe sometimes take some time off to take a walk down the beach or take a stroll or have a cup of coffee.
That, it's wonderful, Viren, that you had that stamina and the passion. I think you love the game, and therefore you stayed with it. So I wanted to ask you is that you were saying there is so much of hard work. And Vishy also said, in order to be really successful, there is a lot of hard work. For most of us, if we reach some level, one level of success, we kind of get into a comfort zone and not really come up to what many people may think it's our full potential. I remember in school, most time the report would say not up to full potential, could do better. And I thought it was something, the rubber stamp that went for every child. But I think it is true that soon we hit a comfort zone. And I've read in Vishy's book that was something that he also struggled with at one stage. So how do you make sure that these youngsters who are going to step out, what tips do you have for them to, first of all, put in that effort to come to their full potential? And should they? And in coming to their full potential, Are they losing out anywhere, or are they maximizing? So any thoughts on how, or tips?
I can't really say too much about others. Maybe I'll just say a little bit about, again, my own journey, in the sense that, like I said, after 10th standard, where, all Indian kids generally have to make a decision in life. For me, although everyone was saying study to medicine, engineering, I wanted to play hockey, and I did what I felt was best for me, and I didn't feel that I needed anyone else to tell me what to do in life, and I backed myself, and I just said I'll work hard and take full responsibility and take full ownership for whatever my actions. I was fairly confident that if it did not succeed, I would go back to studies. And the same thing happened actually at the age of 27, when I had played 8-9 years for the Indian hockey team, and I was actually thinking of the next phase of my life. And at that point of time, everyone and their auntie said that I should be playing for another Olympic cycle, another 3-4 years more. And but at that point of time, when everyone wanted me to play, I wanted to study. And again, I just felt that the time was right to move on when I was at the peak of my game and do what I wanted to do. But I think the important thing here is, one is taking calculated risks, second, backing yourself, and third is actually being prepared. I actually did my homework when I was 15, that this is what I want to do. I had coaches, I had teams that I knew I wanted to train. I knew that I had to work really hard to get somewhere. And same when I was 27, I was already preparing for my GMAT, studying there, studying for it. I'd given my exams. And then when I got into ISB, I felt that the time was right to move on. So I think preparation gives you confidence to back yourself up, and if we prepare in the right way, if we think in the right direction, I think that will always help us take the next steps, take calculated risks, and not necessarily go down only the beaten path. We can always go down the path less trodden.
Thanks, Viren. Rishi, you had one goal, or everybody told you one goal at that time, which has become India's grandmaster, the first grandmaster. And you did become India's first grandmaster. Why didn't you retire? Why did you in your book, you say that you were so happy, so satisfied that you kind of maybe got into a comfort zone. So do you have a different message? What would you suggest to these young leaders? How do they keep themselves motivated going? That's first successes, or for that matter, first failures. Both should not take you off the stage of life. So what would you suggest, Rishi? And how did you manage to keep yourself motivated then and today? Because you're continuing to play on the world stage and giving everybody a hard time. So winning. Rishi, over to you.
I think luckily, this is a self-correcting problem. In the sense that, of course, when I became a grandmaster, I had the feeling, I've done this. And for a few months, that was enough. A bad result, you could shrug it off and just go on with life because you still feel very good about yourself. But I said this is self-correcting because it's almost human to have this kind of blind ambition, even illogical ambition. Maybe it's not justified, but we have it. And it's there. So it doesn't have to be a conscious effort. You don't have to say, how do I motivate myself? Usually there is a natural way where you'll come around to motivating yourself, and another one where you push yourself slightly to do it. So after a few months as a grandmaster, I realized the world works in a certain way. People forget that you became a grandmaster. You also have to move on, and it's time to set yourself. Second thing, I would say, as a species, we are very curious. You want to see how far can I go, and I think the nicest challenges are the futile ones, because when you try for something you have no earthly right to try for, you discover a lot about yourself, and you will very fondly remember this. Even even in sports, we have met so many people who said, well, I knew I was not really going to play professionally, but I just wanted to see how good I could be. That's really thing. So that comes naturally. But the important thing is to understand the necessity of having some sort of conscious goal. You can't just fly blind. You have a conscious goal and say, this is what I'm going to aim for. Now, this doesn't have to be an arrow pointing upwards. It can point sideways. You can say, I want to do something a bit more fun, or I want to do something creative, or I want to help someone else, whatever. But setting new goals like that, you get the motivation back to work. And then it's very exciting to do it. For me, it was almost natural. I understood that having become a grandmaster, I had a decent chance in world champion, nothing overwhelming, but I could not imagine a world in which I wouldn't try it. I would anyway enjoy the benefits of being a grandmaster. And now, being from a country without a chess history had its advantages, because people want to see you. So organizers invite you because they think, Russian playing chess, no biggie, but an Indian playing chess, well, let's invite him and find out and see what it is. So you benefit as well on the other end. And I just went about working towards the world title, which means the constant improvements. But these pay off in other ways, because when you play the rest of the tournament circuit, you benefit from that anyway. So you're essentially, what you're saying, I'm a better chess player. And if that journey takes me to world champion, great. After I became world champion, it's a bit interesting. You still have to find new ways to push yourself. You have to say, well, I'm going to strive for a new rating record, or I'm breaking records. And you see some people who are brilliant at this. They, even when you think they can really be satisfied, they're not. And that's very nice. And here again, a little bit of work-life balance comes back. You have to understand what is right for you. Now, which means it can be something where your career goals are part of a bigger goal set that you're looking at. So as I said, not exclusively an arrow pointing upwards, but you can also expand how you want to do it. It can be creative things. I want to do things at chess that I've not done before. I want to win in more time controls, try in more formats. You expand your thing like that. And but that's what makes life interesting. The key thing is then understanding when you're likely to perform well and what are the conditions in which that happens. And for me, very often, the answer to that was when I'm relaxed, when I've slept well, when I'm in a positive frame of mind. And so things that are healthy are not contrary to a goal at all. In fact, they're the best way of reaching it. And when you do that, then also the effort of understanding, enjoying life, understanding people might be successful in other walks of life. I think appreciating that also gives you some feedback. And it sets up a kind of balance where you're not obsessed. It allows you to recover faster from failures if you have other things to do, if you can change the topic, and so on. So it's all connected. As you become a bit healthier, a bit more flexible, you find you've taken a weight off your back, and that's the nice feeling.
So Vishy and Viren, both of you, and Vishy, this is to you, both of you have been very fortunate that from a young age, you discovered your passion, maybe a passion which you then built on to know what you want to do, at least for the early years of your life, and then you built on it. For most of us, when we are moving either because our parents are pushing us in one direction or peer pressure or many things, that when we have joined a business school, our definition or purpose beyond is maybe the first job, maybe a lovely car, maybe a house, maybe a great holiday, and very little beyond that. So both of you are talking about a purpose, a goal. And in that, it could be up, it could be sideways, it could be holistic, many things. But the first job, did I get it right or wrong, itself is stressful enough. Today's goals, have I met it or not, is stressful enough. And these are very short-term objectives that is driving us in our actions today. So how do I step back and set proper goals and not get buffeted by either short-term victory or failure? The kind of goals that you're talking about, you had the passion, you discovered it early. Many of us discover it serendipitously. And so any tips, any suggestions of how do these youngsters discover their purpose in life? What tips can you give them of how to introspect and how to set those goals? I know it is different for each individual and they need to discover it. But how would you help them think this through?
Well, in a similar way to Viren, I was very, very fortunate that my parents were incredibly supportive. I mean, first, because my mother herself was the one who introduced me to chess and thing. But I think it also benefited from the fact that I was doing something that nobody really knew how to judge. I mean, I'm sure my dad would have given me more advice if I had tried to become an engineer, but becoming a chess player, what could he say? He kind of left it and said, okay, you figure your way out. And that was nice. One of the things I feel now is that the path is much broader. There are things you have to do in the right way. But can I say that at this moment, this choice was very important, because if I had not done it, I would not have become world champion? No. It's normal to be very concerned at a young age that you're taking the right steps or following the right path. But as you get older, you realize that there are many paths that could have led you to the goal. And it's important not to obsess about it. This is something we have to discover for ourselves. You can't learn it by thing, but it's nonetheless useful to know, to hear other people say, it doesn't matter that much. And I think that is important. The other thing is, how do I create an ambience where I tend to perform the best? This is very personal, because we often try to see how somebody else did it, but we're all pretty unique, and so there'll be a lot of quirks. I mean, you could say very broad things, be interested in this and that, collaborate with people, and so on. But in a narrow sense, what irritates you before you go to sleep? What emotion do you have that you don't admit to everyone, but it affects you a lot? It could be jealousy, it could be envy, it could be these things we don't broadcast, but then you need to see, when does it peak? When does it happen? And can I develop any perspective to minimize it next time? Because it doesn't correlate well with performance. When I try to do a good job, if I've had these feelings sometime, I often find that it's harder to get back on track, that sort of thing. So you have to keep a keen eye out for yourself, and nobody else can do this for you. I mean, no amount of coaching can substitute for what a person finds for themselves. And no amount of, it's not reducible to a finite number of steps that works for everyone. Everyone has to find their own cooking recipe, so to speak.
So friends, I think the first thing is that, Vishy, as a chess player, and thanks to his mother's training, used to write down at the end of every game what worked and what did not work. It was, in a way, a training, but also a discipline of taking stock of what we do right and what we could do better, so that we are better prepared to face, the challenges as we go forward. Starting with is a self-assessment. We are very good at assessing others, but our own self-assessment, that is what I'm hearing Vishy say. Take stock It could be small emotions. Just because you're a little upset before sleep means you've messed up your night's sleep, which means you're not at your best next morning to perform. And for all of us, our performance is dependent on the quality of our actions. And our actions are driven by how good we feel about ourselves, as Viren said, and as Vishy is saying, both at a physical level and at an emotional level. And therefore, how do we assess? How do we take stock? And it is not a miracle that from tomorrow I will stop being short-tempered. From tomorrow I will stop being this. No, it's the Japanese way of Kaizen, as they called it. Small steps in the right direction. And I think that is what I'm hearing you say, Vishy. An awareness, take stock of how you did. How did you do a relationship? Oh, shucks, I shouldn't have said that. I wish I had said it better. And take stock and make those marginal improvements. But even an awareness of what I could have done better makes us better. Is that what I heard you say? I think, Vishy,
Definitely. And you put it very well. It's small things. I mean, only you'll know that a small incident at the airport before you arrived at the tournament, or a small interaction somewhere got under your skin much more than what people think. I mean, if you read sports journalists write about an event, they'll always try to dissect the result based on what they see. But there are 1,000 little things that can happen in the back. And this is really about understanding yourself and what produces emotional stability. Of course, I'm not claiming this is a solved problem. It's something I continue to work on every day, but nonetheless, that's the journey. You're right. You're absolutely right. So.
Yeah. Yeah, I know we know who to ask, but sure. So, yeah. So Viren, you were telling us about how at the peak of your career, you decided to sidestep and look at doing an MBA, like many of, our friends in the audience are doing. There is a clarity in the direction of the choice you wanted to make. How do you bring that clarity in that decision making? My first job is a nightmare. I know of young people who are not able to sleep if they don't get placed on day 0 or day 1 or whatever it is. And they're affected by that. Whereas I know that in 2 years, they've moved on from there. And when they look back, they wonder, what the hell? How did you have that clarity, a direction, a purpose? And can you, based on your own decision making, share some insights to our young friends?
Yeah, absolutely, Ramnath sir. I think, I can again so relate to the challenges that most of these school students are facing today, because I was in that same position in the year 2009 when, if you remember, sir, during that period, it was the global meltdown. There was the Lehman Brothers issue. There was the Satyam scandal. Our ISB dean had to resign from the board. So it was a very tough, challenging financial year. Jobs were at a premium. Placements were really tough. And, after a lot of campus interviews, etc., I actually got a conventional corporate job in one of the big MNCs. I was supposed to be starting in Delhi. I got a very decent pay packet. And, I had a 3-month break before I was supposed to start my job in Delhi. And then actually I happened to meet the OGQ board, Geet, Prakash, people who I really admired. And at that point of time, OGQ was a not-for-profit organization. We didn't have much funds. It was still more or less an idea on paper, still to really concretize in terms of the idea. But what struck me the most when I met yourself, sir, Geet Sethi and Prakash Padukone, of course, who were heroes and role models for me. And when I had those initial meetings, what changed my thought process at that point of time was that this is a place where I can learn a lot. this is a great environment to learn something from scratch. It was a blank white board, and I could draw my own picture, and it gave me the freedom to pursue my passion. And for me, the passion at that point of time was I couldn't win an Olympic medal myself, and I wanted to help the next generation of athletes do something that I couldn't do. And it gave me the platform to put the wrongs right, where over the last decade from my own experience of playing. And I felt that I would be backed by a great board. I would be backed by people who had far more wisdom and experience than me. And for me, the ability to learn from leaders in their own field, people to learn from leaders from different walks of life, to have a good environment, that was more attractive to me than the pay package. And doing something where if I had gone for that other job, I would have been on Excel sheets 24/7, and I'm not saying that's a bad thing. But at that point of time, I had to make a choice: would I take a bigger pay packet and do something that I was maybe not so passionate about, versus learning a lot, being in the right environment with great people? For me, it was a no-brainer. And again, like I always knew, like in sport, this is a marathon, and the first job is like a sprint. If we think of only of that, but life is not like that. And I remember, sir, when training for the Indian hockey team, endurance is one of the biggest key, what do you say, key factors that you have to have as a player. And I used to hate the endurance training. We used to run thrice a week. Very often, our camps were in Delhi, and we used to run from the National Stadium to India Gate to Rashtrapati Bhavan and back like 6-7 times. And it was horrible because I hated. I loved the speed training. I loved explosive strength training, but I didn't like the endurance part. But sometimes you got to have strength to push through those tough phases. And I think life is like a marathon. In a marathon, I remember those early morning runs from National Stadium to Rashtrapati Bhavan. Every kilometer, I used to literally count that, I felt like giving up, and I didn't want to do it. And your body's paining, and, you're not feeling like running that morning. And sometimes you got to push through the tough times as well. But every kilometer would teach you a different, it would teach you something different about your body and about yourself. And I think the mind has to be really strong to last a marathon.
A couple of things I'm learning from both of you. One is that it is okay to make a slight compromise if that means you enjoy what you do. Second thing is, don't lose your ability to learn at every opportunity. Even if it is a painful endurance test, every kilometer teaches you something new about your body. But that ability to learn, we've had Alvin Toffler and all of them talk to us about the illiterate of the century, is somebody who's not able to unlearn and learn. So that openness to learning, I think, keeps us, itself is a joy. And every opportunity in an area, like you said, a blank paper, where you are able to create your own path and chalk out your path and constantly learn from everything around you, from people, from situations. And Vishy talking about curiosity. And a lot of it is, sometimes our education system kills some of our curiosity and our, don't go away from the textbook and stick to this, or learning doesn't become as broad as what both of you are recommending. Therefore, the need for each one of you individuals out there, students, to pull yourself out from there and create that mindset to constantly be curious, to learn. That's how innovation comes. That's how you yourself will discover more about what you may like or not like, and then figure out purpose in life. Is that, Viren, how you think we should
Absolutely, sir. I think just being you rightly said about being curious and not get sucked into the place where you're you, you're only doing what people want you to do. I think sometimes it's important. I think, like they say, a good coach is one who teaches you how to make your own decisions. And because once you step across the white lines, finally when you go there, you got to make your own decisions. The coach is not going to play for you.
True.
And that's something that we must always understand, that finally we have to take our own decisions and be willing to back ourselves and then take ownership and responsibility for everything.
True. So, Viren, as the CEO and board member at Olympic Gold Quest, OGQ, one of the things that many young girls have in this country are not enough role models. Success has been mostly men because women may not have had equal enough opportunity. That is changing. And you, in your Olympic Gold Quest, in helping many young girls help India get medals for themselves and for the country, are you seeing a bunch of young women who are out there making India proud? And what qualities are you seeing in them that they're able to break some of these traditional restrictions that have been put around women and come out? Mary Kom, mother, not once, I think she has a set of twins and 3 children, if I'm not mistaken. Like that, you know many women who have done extremely well in spite of, all sorts of ceilings and boundaries that are put around them. So what are you seeing in these women? Our women's hockey team, for example.
Absolutely, Ramat. I couldn't agree. I think, we're seeing literally a chain reaction, I think, in women's sport at the moment. If you think about the biggest stars in Olympic sport today in India, I think most of them are women. From Mary Kom to Saina to Sindhu to Sania Mirza to Mirabai Chanu to Vinesh Fogart to the Indian women's hockey team. I think all of them are achieving. And I think it's important also to note that most of them came from backgrounds where sport was not a natural path for most of them. Most of them came from families where they didn't have the right coaching, they didn't have the right training, the right infrastructure, the right nutrition, no support at all. Take the Indian women's hockey team. I mean, half the team comes from small villages in Haryana. Growing up, none of them had astroturf hockey grounds to play. None of them had the right coaching. Most of them come from backgrounds where they can't wear jeans, they can't own their own mobile phones, they can't marry someone of their choice. So these are tough situations, and yet they're able to rise above that. And I've seen it over the last decade that if women are given the right opportunities and the right platform, and if they're given a level playing field, I think they can achieve far more than men. And I think it's very important at every stage, especially in the corporate world as well, to give the right opportunities and especially leadership opportunities to women. It's extremely important to bring that perspective into our thinking. Even within OGQ now, almost half the employees are women, half the athletes we support are women athletes. This Tokyo Olympics was the first Olympics where there was gender equality in terms of the number. It was 50% male and female athletes. So it's great to see, and we definitely have to move towards that in all aspects of that.
Thanks, Viren. Vishy, question to you, Vishy. You have said that talent by itself, while it is a great thing to have, may not be the only thing to make you a champion. How do you convert yourself from being a strong player to a champion? And therefore, what is it, many of us get satisfied because at early days, we suddenly get 99 and 100 and we think we know everything. But you have moved from just that talent to a strong player to a champion year after year and taken on the world. So what did you do to convert yourself?
Okay, my own impression of talent is it is a real thing. It exists, but in a very small quantity. So I'll tell you why. It exists because there are many young chess players who put in the same number of hours, who are as dedicated, but one person will make what seems to be effortless progress, whereas the others will appear to be slogging. So it clearly exists. But at the same time, you can give me a position I'm unfamiliar with, and clearly I'm talented at chess because there is some baseline competence below which I don't drop. But I flounder in positions I've not studied and spent time on. And when I work on something, then my intuition improves noticeably. I become much better, much smoother. My thoughts are more coherent in that same chess position. I believe this works for almost every walk of life. Maybe at some fundamental level, we are attuned to some kind of work. Our brain is slightly optimized in one area rather than another, and we call this talent. But it's very limited. It simply points in the direction. If you find a profession which is in which your optimized brain works well, then that's good. But beyond that, it's almost entirely work. And if you want to get good at something, you work at it. And you not only get good at explaining why you're doing something, you get much better at doing something without realizing it. Essentially, muscle memory. Very few, especially in physical sports, but equally in mental sports, but especially in physical sports, the best shots come when they're not thinking about, now I have to do this. It just doesn't work that way. And so, but it's only practice which builds that second thing. And mostly everything is work. But if you enjoy something, it doesn't feel like work. And that allows you to put a phenomenal amount of time in it without resenting that. So the key thing is to find something you really love. And if it is not something you really love, find some little detail in it which you really like. Try to make it. So when I work on some area in chess, which is not amongst my favorites. I mean, for instance, I'm more naturally drawn to middle games rather than end games. But when I work on end games, if I reduce it to the next time I play an end game, I need to do this stage very well. And I've reduced the thing. I work on that very well. Then during the board, it allows me to focus. It allows me to concentrate because I have reduced it to a slightly narrow thing, which I can do well. It would be too ambitious to say I'm going to do the whole thing well because I know my brain will wander off. But you try to make a small bit of it enjoyable. Once you get better at that, you try to make some other small bit enjoyable. And that way you get good at things you're not naturally good at also. You're not naturally inclined towards. So like this, you can follow strategies to make things more fun to do, to get better in certain areas. But whether it's something you like or dislike, nothing really beats the number of hours you sit there as a way of predicting your performance. You can be very clever how you use those hours, but not much more than that.
The tipping point says 10,000 attempts at any point in time. And I think they try to quantify what you just said, that it takes a hell of a lot of effort to succeed and for it to become intuitive and a habit. So it comes naturally. So nobody realizes that there is so much of hard work when they see you play, whether it is against any opponent or the speed chess that you do. Nobody realizes the hard work that went behind it because it looks so natural, so intuitive. And you're saying all of that is because you took an assessment of where you needed to focus so that your brain is available for that focus and spend the time focusing and preparing. Is that
very much? And once you've lost a game in a way you didn't need to for the 10th time, believe me, you will get around to working on it because it really drives you nuts.
Yeah, so potential talent is fantastic to have. It's a natural gift. Don't mess it up. You need to back it with hard work. Tipping Point says 10,000 hours, 10,000 times. Vishy says just do it where your brain lets you focus and do it well. So Vishy, before I move to Viren, and I think we're getting towards the end, I wanted to ask you one question. Uh, you know, we've spoken a lot about how you have succeeded, but your journey has not been only up. You've been a pioneer for India, broken many paths and records. And in that process, you have failed sometimes. Yet today, you are our world champion in chess. So two questions really. One is, how do you pick yourself up when you think I should not have actually failed, or you just got beaten? So, how do you pick yourself up from a defeat in life, in a game? How do you pick yourself up? Second is, you are now a role model. So what is preventing many other youngsters, you've shown the way, in India to reach your levels?
Okay, so I think the most important thing is to recover emotionally, then to recover technically. And that's because when you haven't recovered emotionally, you're not capable of recovering technically. You recover best technically when you look at something dispassionately, you dissect it, and you figure out, this is how I crack it, this is how I make sure it doesn't happen again. But when you're angry, you cannot think clearly. So it has to recover. Clearly, experience is what teaches you. From your first defeat, you understand, hey, I came back after my first defeat. So that is something. I know it's not the end of the world, sort of thing. You get slightly better at recovering every time. You know what you have to do. You get better at knowing what you have to do to recover emotionally. How do you put things aside? This can mean taking the evening off to taking 2 months off, as I've done at different stages of my career. You simply give yourself enough distance so that the pain goes away. Then you slowly come back. You look at the very difficult stuff. The painful stuff, if you look at after some time has passed, it doesn't feel that bad. And then you slowly get back. So it's almost a two-stage thing. First, you realize there is life at the end of the tunnel. And second, you realize you're in a tunnel. And if this has happened a few times, you're more and more confident about that and not easily flustered.
Asking you why not many have reached where you have.
And just the other thing, I think chess nowadays is very, very competitive across the world, thanks to especially communications and computers. More and more countries and people have access to the best training methods, even if they're isolated geographically. And as a result, chess is more global than it's ever been before. This means that it's a very competitive sport right now globally, and it's very hard to say for sure that why you're not breaking through or something like that. It may happen. It may simply be something beyond your control. But you've got to be just patient, hang in there. I think, especially now, there are lots of extremely talented youngsters, and many of them are actually in the top 2 by many yardsticks. I work with them in the Westbridge and the Chess Academy that I'm doing now. I'm trying to help them a little bit. And I think it's essentially very close. It'll happen, but unfortunately, we can't train this. Just like with OGQ, you feel that we have created a better baseline, that a lot of our athletes have a certain checklist, a lot of items are ticked. But beyond that, you can only be the background, and sometimes things just have to click for them. But I'm very optimistic both for chess and for OGQ that is we have set the baseline so that it's easier when it does click.
So I'm going to go to Viren, but Vishy, I'll come back to you for one last statement after I speak with Viren. Is there any message that you want to leave for these youngsters? So it gives you a moment to think, and I'll come back to you. So Viren, question I had for you is many of our MBA students start off at junior positions. Like you are a player, and then when you became the captain of India's hockey team, what was the change mentally that you had to bring about to be accepted as the captain, as the leader? And how was there anything that you want to share that you had to change in the way you approach the team or the game?
Yeah, good question, sir. Actually, when I started in the team as a youngster, 18, 19 years old, and at that point of time, there were many senior players in the team. And you know how it is in India, when you're a junior in the team, you're only meant to be seen and not heard. And I could never imagine giving my viewpoint in the team meeting or telling people that, what we're doing in training is all crap, and we need to be doing it much better. So, I think few of the things I tried to incorporate when I eventually became the captain, and I was still a captain at a young age. I became captain at 24, and there were players who were senior to me in the team as well. And number one, I always try to lead by example in terms of work ethic, in terms of training loads that I would take, and really set the example, set the tone. Not just by work ethic, but also by positive body language. Number two, just like I mentioned also before, creating the right environment where everyone had a safe place to air their opinions and not be worried about being judged, and create an environment where we respect each other's opinions. We may not, we may or may not agree with other opinions, but it's important to respect each other's opinions. And number three, always, like as I became senior, always try to follow a policy of, if you're ticking off someone, try to do that in private as much as possible. And if you're praising someone, it's okay to do that in the group setting. And no matter whether it's ticking off or praise, just keep it short. And because people are generally smart, and there's no need to do that for too long. So I think I love the fact that I was a hockey player, because I got to be in a team environment from a young age. And I think group dynamics and learning to work in teams where you know and understand that everyone in the team has a role to play, and not everyone's role is the same, and you don't always get the bouquet. Sometimes you get the brickbats, and not necessarily that you can be the hero. But if you learn and respect the fact that you also contribute in a big way in the team, I think that helps you a lot to respect yourself and appreciate yourself in what you are contributing.
So stop giving gyan, set the example when you become the leader. People follow what you do, not necessarily what you say, is what I heard you say. So Viren, I'll ask Vishy for his last message, and then I'll come back to you for any last message that you may have to these young MBAs. Vishy, over to you.
Since all of you are, in a sense, at the start of your journey, I don't want to shorten it. Every bit is beautiful. So I will say this. Experience everything for the first time. That is very nice. No matter how good it gets, enjoy it as much as you can now. And the bad moments, the first time you go through them, it will feel like your world is falling apart. I don't want to deprive you of either sensation. Just that as time goes along, I hope you will see that you will have many more shots in life. So you can be a little bit relaxed, but the first time you feel your world is falling apart, that's wonderful. Feel it, enjoy it.
Thank you, Vishy. Straight from the heart, one sucker punch. Wonderful. Viren, what do you have to say?
I think for me, it just takes courage to succeed. And that courage may sometimes involve facing defeats. For us as athletes, for me as a hockey player, facing defeat and facing injuries, those were the two hardest things to face. But in the long run, if you have courage, I think you can overcome everything.
Have the courage, be prepared. Life is going to have its ups and downs. Have your purpose, work hard, and I'm sure you will all be the role models for the generation that's coming behind you. That's the message that at least I got from you, Vishy, and you, Viren. Thank you very much for this wonderful session that you have had. You've spent your time. Thank you for sharing your experiences. Thank you very much.